Hey, box owners, welcome to another episode of Period Sis. I am your host, Mandy B, and this episode is brought to you by none other than the official box owner. Yet again, back with another tale of womanhood. We are talking endometriosis today on this week's episode. And again, what happens when you don't find out anything is not really right until college? That's the journey that we're hearing today because, again, not every journey is the same, but I'm excited to dive into it this week. Is another tale of womanhood for women by women. And ladies, we are joined today with Lauryen Kornegay, who is the executive director and founder of Endo Black Incorporated. Let's get into it. Hi, Lauryn. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. And I know in the intro, I kind of, got it right before we started this conversation. I, of course, always want to start back to the very moment that something is alarming. And of course, you let me know that it wasn't until college that you felt like, something is not right with my period. So let's get into what that experience was like and really what happened and what alarmed you to lead you to the diagnosis of endometriosis.
Yeah, so in college, of course, we had midterms, and unfortunately, for some reason, at Morgan State University, we had midterms and homecoming around the same time. So I was a little stressed out. My cycle had started. It went away, and I had this big presentation as I was a speech major. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in class dressed up, and I'm like, something seems a little weird. So I go to the restroom, and my cycle starts again. So this is the second cycle that I've had within 2 weeks back to back. So of course,
Now, is it what? One moment, was your period at this time? What was the length of, say, a normal period
for
for you?
me at the time, the length was probably about 5 to roughly 6
Okay.
days. 5 to roughly 6 days.
Okay, so you had went through a full cycle and then maybe had how much of a gap before your cycle started
I would
again?
literally say 3 days, enough for me to not think I was
Okay.
spotting. So
Okay.
that
Gotcha.
is what kind of led me to pay attention. I'm like, this is 3 days after the spotting has stopped. So what is this situation that's going on? So immediately, I of course paid attention to what was going on. I went to the ER. The ER OBGYN on call told me, go to a OBGYN when you get a chance to. She gave me some medication to stop it. And I did exactly what she said. Thankfully, I listened because,
One
sometimes,
moment. She gave you medication
yeah,
to
she
stop
gave
your
me
period?
medication to stop it. Yeah, that's a thing.
Do you know what that medicine was? I did not know that that was a
No, I,
thing.
I do not. I think it could have been honestly ibuprofen. Honestly, it
Oh,
could have been.
okay.
Yeah. But it,
Okay.
it stopped. I was able to go to my OBGYN, who was a new OBGYN. I was in Baltimore, Maryland, so I didn't come all the way home. Went to Baltimore, Maryland, found an OBGYN. It was a short little Asian lady, so cute, uh, just the nicest person ever. And it was a family practice, which I love.
Okay.
So her son and her daughter
Okay.
worked there. I went there and she said, tell me what the issue is. I told her my cycle came back. She said, tell me what your cycle symptoms are. I said, my left knee hurts before I get my cycle. My right knee hurts after I get my cycle. I also have chest pains. I have sharp pain. She was like, hold it. That's not normal. Let's do a pelvic
Sounds like arthritis. No, I'm just playing.
arthritis in my
I
knees.
this is Well, this is the first time as well. I believe on even on this show that I've heard of
Really?
someone having pains in their knees
Yes.
from their
Yep.
cycle, and it was that sharp that you really even were able to differentiate which knee at what
Because
time you
I
were feeling the
knew
pain.
that I knew right before it would be probably my ovulation. I should say now that I'm a little bit more equipped with the knowledge, I believe it was like my ovulation cycle, and then the phase
Okay.
after the actual menstrual cycle. So it was like I knew that I was like, oh, my knee hurt, my period coming. You know how somebody says like my
And see, mine is my tits. my
They get
my
tender,
tits
right?
when they get
Yeah,
so tender and heavy and
yeah.
sore. It actually literally just happened last week. I told my friend, we were out of town. I said, "Oh,
Not
girl, my period gonna come on while we
not while
here."
you on a
Literally
trip.
2 days later, 2 days later, it
Oh,
came,
I hate that.
and she was like, "You called it," and that's how much I know my body as well
Yeah.
with my cycle. So you were so in tune with your body that you started ringing out the
Yep.
symptoms, and she stopped you and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound
Yeah.
right." What was that conversation like?
She said, let's do a pelvis exam. And, I was like, okay, let's do a pelvic exam. You're the doctor. You clearly know what's going on more than me. We end up doing a pelvic exam, and she was able to see that I had a reverted uterus, which is not a normal situation for a lot of people. They say reverted uterus is like there's tilted uteruses, reverted uterus, and then there's the, I guess, normal uterus. And she said that reverted uteruses are actually a common thing for people that have endometriosis. But the thing is, if
Oh,
doctors don't know what a reverted uterus is, they can't really indicate if that person has a reverted uterus or if that person possibly may have endometriosis.
okay. So they're not one and the same, but normally people
Right.
with endometriosis do have a quote unquote abnormal
Yep.
uterus.
And that was the number
Okay.
one factor. The next step was surgery. After she saw after the pelvic exam was done, she was like, "Oh, we need to do surgery because surgery is the only way that you can diagnose endometriosis." At this point, it was all speculations based off the symptoms and, her
Okay.
actual dealings with it. But she wanted to make sure, so we ended up having to schedule a surgery for March. I believe that when I went to her, it was October. I was still enrolled at Morgan State and I had completed. And then in March, I had my surgery on March the 18th, 2011, and was diagnosed.
Wow. Now, I again unfamiliar. So, endometriosis is something that requires surgery, or is it something that doesn't always require
It
surgery?
doesn't
Do
always
you know?
require surgery, but it requires surgery to get an accurate diagnosis. Now, there are some talks about
Okay.
doing blood work and other things like that. However, ACOG has specifically said that as of right now, the only way to actually diagnose is through an axial surgery, which is called a laparoscopic surgery. You can actually do an excision or an ablation surgery. So there's two different kinds.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about that. You did go through surgery and then got the diagnosis. What were the conversations like after the diagnosis? What were the things in which she said would be affected? What would be the symptoms moving forward? Would you still keep the chest pains and the left and right knee hurting? Was that fixed with surgery? What kind of was the result of surgery and the diagnosis as
So
well?
that's the thing. There was no conversation, honestly, about after. There was no follow up. There was, and I could have dropped the ball. I was young, so I probably should have reached out. But
Okay.
I think that that is where we fall short a lot of times. Like, we got the
Okay.
diagnosis. I didn't know that it would be a lifelong disorder. I thought the surgery would fix everything and I would bounce back and I'd be like, oh, I'm good, And no, that was not the case. I had ended up actually back in the hospital in August of 2011, August the 28th. She did, however, I will say this, when she did the surgery at John
Yes.
Hopkins, she did say that she saw a cyst. The cyst was very small.
Okay.
She put me on birth control, which was Loestrin, um, to kind of maintain the cyst. But there was no further
Okay.
conversation about endometriosis. Yeah.
Wait.
Um,
So you have this surgery for endometriosis. There's a cyst that is spotted, and she's just like, "Well, here's some Loestrin.
yeah.
This should keep it to where the cyst doesn't bother you." But she didn't like tell you about a follow up. She didn't tell
I
you
thought
about what
that
to
was
expect
it.
now that the surgery was. Oh
Yeah, I thought
goodness.
that was it. I thought, and I'm not gonna say I thought I was cured. I don't know what the conversation was. My dad was asking a lot of questions at the time. He was asking a lot. So he probably got more information than I did because by that time I was drugged up from the anesthesia. And I could,
But also, that's your
yeah.
father. How does he know how to communicate that to you? He doesn't know. You know what I mean? Men barely know much about what we got going
Well,
on a lot of the
yeah,
times.
I agree. I agree. So it wasn't communicated clearly for me that this was a disorder that I had to live with for the rest of my life. And this, or, these are the symptoms that you may deal with. This is the recovery. Now, the recovery wasn't an issue. I actually was fine. They said I was supposed to be on bed rest for 3 weeks. I was up in 1 week, moving around, doing stuff like, and it was only small incisions, so it wasn't like a cut open surgery.
Right.
I don't think I probably should have been doing that, but I learned, and like I mentioned, I ended up being back in the hospital. The cyst had ruptured. And this is the
Oh,
craziest thing, because I said to myself, I want to get healthier. I have endometriosis. Let me eat food healthy. Let me run around the block, not realizing that the cyst was so big that when I ran, I ruptured it. Yes.
so although she said that it was fairly
Yep.
small at the time, it was something that was in fact
It was
growing at a
growing.
rate.
It was growing at a rate. I stayed on the lowest strand, birth control, which is supposed to help, but to each his own. It helps some people, it may not help everybody. But sure enough, like August the 26th, I ran around the block. Well, I ran halfway around the block. By the time I got the other way, I was tired. Um, got home, started breathing really heavy, drank some Gatorade, was still breathing heavy, got in the shower, was still breathing heavy. The shower got dark. I was like, yo, you're tripping. Go lay down. I went to my room to go lay down, and I passed out before I could get to my room. And I don't know how long I was
Oh,
on the floor. I was just up looking at the ceiling. And when I woke up, I just crawled into bed, because I don't know if you've ever passed out. Once you've passed out, your body is exhausted. So it's like, I'll figure this out
right.
later, but I genuinely have to really go lay down. So then I went to my doctor, and my family doctor in Oxon Hill, Maryland, where I live at, and she was like, if you pass out again, you need to go to the ER. We can do some blood work, but you need to go
Right.
to ER. Don't come in here to us, because we can't fix it's not a fix situation. And sure
Right.
enough, I passed out again, coming out of the bathroom and missing uh the wall by like a corner, like my forehead missing the wall. My friend saw it and screamed, and I was like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the ER. Please don't call an ambulance. I'm gonna go tomorrow. And my friend, she took me, and by the third time, it takes me 3 times to realize something. By the third time, I realized that it had to do something with my uterus, because every time I used the restroom, I would pass out immediately
Right.
after. And then they ended up
So
saying that I
wait,
had,
you had a ruptured cyst, and you didn't even go and get it checked until you realized you were fainting by the third time.
yeah, yeah, I think it only took me 3 days.
Wow.
I think it only took me 3 days to know.
only
Yeah.
three.
And what made it worse was that, like, summer is hot. I sweat a lot, but my
Okay.
stomach was the only thing sweating. And I said, this is weird to me.
Oh.
I was like, this is
Okay.
really weird, because my back wasn't sweating, my arm, my underarms. It was just my stomach that was sweating. And I was like, this is confusing me, to the point my friend had to put me in a wheelchair, roll me inside, because at that point I started feeling pain. Stuff was coming. So I ended up having 2 gallons of blood in my abdomen that had ruptured. And then they patched me up and sent me on my way. And that was the end of that, and that was the beginning of a whole new journey in my life.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And so again, because this was now something else with your uterus that happened, were there follow-up questions to the ruptured cyst? Was there any urgency, I guess, for you after you left the ER to go and really, see how can I make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Yes, so the urgency actually started with
Okay.
like the research piece. I knew that I had endometriosis. I knew that the cyst had to be linked to the endometriosis. So I just started doing research. And that's kind of how I stumbled across me being the black unicorn of endometriosis, because I realized that nobody else that looked like me was dealing with the things that I was dealing with. I
Mm.
did go to my doctor, did a follow up with her, kind of just let her know what was going on. But she was a family doctor, so I really needed to find an OBGYN in the area. And with me transitioning from college to coming home, I think it was a little difficult for me to really understand like how important it was for me to take care of my physical health. Um,
Mm.
because as a college student, we are, in our minds, we're invincible. And we think we are
Yeah.
capable of doing anything. And not even just as a college student, as a young person in general. We get kind of reckless sometimes.
I mean, I will say too, one of the things that I'm also hearing a lot from women who are finding out things maybe early on, the idea that something is wrong with you is something that you don't want the news about. So you may just also
Push it
push
off.
back
Yeah.
going to the doctor because you don't want to hear that you dying tomorrow.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear, we know that sometimes there could be really really bad news
Yeah.
that comes about regarding our health that sometimes we're not really in a space to face it.
It's
However,
tough.
it is something that it does get tough. So you're back from college and now you're like, I really need to focus on me and
Yeah.
my health. Let's talk about what that research looked like and how you decided to kind of take hold on your personal health.
For me, the research really just started with like understanding what endometriosis was, and I think that was the hardest part, because even to this day there is still
Mm.
not a clear understanding of what it is. The medical professionals think it's something else. Us, endo community members, we think it's something else, and then it's just so many different things. But understanding that there's a lack of research and there's a lack of resources and
Okay.
education kind of gave me the push I needed to like let me see what I can do for myself. So then I started paying attention to my symptoms. So, which was something that Dr. Maria K, the first OBGYN I went to, kind of put me onto without even knowing she did that, because it was like, okay, my knees hurt, I'm having sharp pains, my chest hurts. What are other things that are happening to me that are causing me to feel some type of way? Can I manage this? Can I time this? Is this something that occurs only during my period or after my period? So it was more so about like doing research on my own body. It's like trial and error. Then I started researching in reference to food. Like, is there a diet for it? I tried to do vegan. That wasn't good for me. A lot of vegan
Okay.
food has soy, so hummus, black beans, edamame, and even though they may be healthy for people that have the vegan lifestyle, soy has estrogen. Estrogen can cause problems with endometriosis. So it's like
Ah.
it's little
Okay.
things like that that we have to pay attention to. I even started to realize that the allergy that I developed in 2010 could have been because of endometriosis. So it was like a
And what allergy was that?
well, it has developed over time. I started off with being just allergic to pineapples, but now I am allergic to pineapples, lemons, limes, mangoes, grapefruit, orange juice.
Citrus?
Yes, not even just citrus, anything that's yellow or orange. I can eat oranges. I can't drink orange juice. So,
Okay.
of course, I have to substitute my mimosas with cranberry juice now. But, I make it work. But that was something that made me realize like, oh, this has been happening. You just didn't know it, because that's 2010. I was diagnosed in
Ooh.
2011.
So let me ask you, have from your research or from your other conversations with women in the endo community, is there a link between those allergies and endometriosis that you've seen with other women as well?
Um, Not those specific
Because those foods
allergies,
are
no.
like,
That's the thing.
okay,
there are plenty of women that may have, like, I know someone that has I don't want to say a rap sheet, but literally, like, she has 4 sheets of allergies, and it's probably filled out to 60% on each sheet.
Wow.
So it really depends on the person. Unfortunately, and that I
Okay.
think that's the confusing part about endometriosis. It depends on the person, and that is like to the T. Because I don't do soy candles because I know that soy, breathing in soy probably isn't good for me. I try to prevent
Oh,
stuff like that.
wow.
Because I may cough. People don't realize that, for instance,
Outs- I was going to ask as well, outside of soy, do you know any other foods that are high in estrogen as well that can affect women?
Um, I'm not sure, but there are foods that can affect women with endometriosis, like dairy. Red meat is a
Ah,
big one. Depending on who you are, I'll say that again. Wheat, grains, things
okay.
that are supposed to be good for us. Um, there's a lot of different things. I've had a scare moment with red cabbage. I can eat green cabbage. I can't eat red cabbage. If red cabbage was a person, I would fight that person. It really hurt me really bad. Um, so there are a few things that women cannot indulge in, and we have to substitute for.
Mm,
Or I'll say, because I will never tell anybody that I have gone vegan or I have stopped eating dairy. I love Chick-fil-A milkshakes. I'm still going to eat them and drink them. But I will refuse to do that during my ovulation cycle. Now that I have got it
okay.
down pat, I understand that during my ovulation cycle, I'm way more sensitive. My immune system is down. I need to be mindful of what I'm putting in my
Mm,
system. So I try to do like holistic approaches, adding ginger, adding turmeric, hibiscus tea, raspberry tea, carrot juice, celery juice, things of that nature. And at least during that time of week. Um,
time of the month, yeah.
so time of month, anytime that I feel, anything is happening. I'm not gonna lie, I do eat ribs. Yes, I'm gonna eat a rib, especially during the summertime. There's cookouts, but if
Right.
I'm gonna eat that rib, I'm gonna take that food home. I'm gonna eat it in moderation, and I'm gonna eat it when I get home. And if I feel like trash,
Right.
guess what? That's something that I have to deal with. But I'm not going to eat that while I'm out and then be slopped over, sleep, or, in pain, and then think everybody's going to pay attention to me. So I pick and choose
So,
when I try to dabble in certain things.
okay. Well, so let's get into Endo Black.
Yes.
Let's get into what Endo Black is, what it stands for, and what kind of conversations you are leading to really get the education out there and to hopefully uh, be kind of the milestone of someone to get research done
Yeah.
because clearly that's what's also lacking. Y'all know I don't. While we need science, it's just
Uh,
like
yeah.
because these doctors ain't getting it right. But yeah, let's talk about what Endo Black is and why you started it.
Endo Black is a Black woman led organization that focuses on advocating for African American women and women of color affected by endometriosis. Established in 2015, of course, doing my own
Awesome.
research, but we created a platform literally just a safe space at Instagram, not realizing that we would impact so many people. It was really a search for me because I'm like, I know I'm not the only Black person with endometriosis because that's crazy. So I created the platform. And then in 2019, we had our first event. It was a meet and greet in Washington, D.C. 50 women came out, and I was like, oh, so y'all really like this? Okay, let's really put this to work. So we were incorporated in 2020. And since then, we have been doing a number of things in the community. We have events where we talk about women's reproductive health. We also
Okay.
are a safe space. We provide endo-sisterly love and friendship and bonds in the community. And then lastly, we are creating dialogues around regulations, laws, and policies that may affect or be helpful to women with endometriosis. And it has been a joy to do something like this. I actually am doing this full time now. I quit my job in December of 2020.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
wow.
like, peace, y'all getting on my nerves. I'm going to do this. And that has allowed me to do so many things. This year alone, we have had a conference with 25 amazing women. Arda Wright, who's a musical artist, as well as Tia Moore, who also has endometriosis. We had a panel discussion with women of all colors talking about motherhood, health equity, business, and so many different things that intertwine with endometriosis. People don't realize endometriosis can affect literally everything that you do. So we want to
Mm,
have these conversations to one, make sure people are getting the resources that they need, but also letting them know that they're not alone. You can get through this.
right.
We got to get through this together. So whatever situations you may have, let's work together. We try to provide resources where it's open for dialogue. So we don't push birth control, we
Right.
don't push hysterectomies, we don't push holistic approaches. We allow people to, read the information, we share stories, and they make the decisions on their own. I think it's fair
I like
to
that.
make sure that everybody understands all of the effects of anything that they do, whether it's a surgery, whether it's pregnancy, whether it's medication or holistic approaches. Here's what can possibly happen if you do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's unfortunately what the medical professionals could be missing when they are pushing
Right.
medications or procedures on people, especially when there's
Right.
other approaches when your endometriosis is not as severe as a lot of other women's endometriosis may be. We have really just grown to a different place. Right now, we are in the process of preparing for Giving Tuesday, which is November the 30th. So we're super excited about that. We have so many things lined up for next year. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened, but that also allowed us to sit down
Right.
and build our foundation and get to the point
I love that.
of what we need to do in the community and how we can really impact women in the community. So,
I love that.
thank
And if there's
you.
anything or any way in which official box owner can be involved, I would love to have that conversation with you because I love
Thank
what you're
you.
doing. And I'm really glad that you reached out. And for anyone listening to this who may be diagnosed already with endometriosis or any of the symptoms in which Lauryn explained that she had, and maybe you realize you've been feeling those same ways, definitely get to a doctor as soon
Yep.
as you can, and make sure you put your health first and advocate for yourself. Um, Lauryn, I want to just thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey and also taking your journey and building the platform that you have with Endo Black. Can you let all of my audience know where they can find you, Endo Black, or where they can reach out to you and your platform as well?
Yes, well, you can reach out. We are on Instagram at Endo Black underscore. I said that wrong. We are on Instagram at Endo underscore Black. We are also on Twitter at the underscore Endo Black. You can search us on Facebook. We also have a private group for African American women who have endometriosis. Currently, we have about 2,000 members a part of that group where they just share their
Oh,
own
wow.
experiences and get advice. I definitely recommend people to go to that group if they are newly diagnosed with endometriosis, just to have some type of support. You can also look us up on Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn. We try to meet people where they are. So definitely
Love
check us
that.
out. We have a lot of information to share with you all and a lot of things that are happening in the year 2022, and we cannot wait to share them with you.
I love that. Lauryn, thank you so, so very much. Guys, you guys stay tuned. I'm going to give you some stats and facts, and I'm going to do some digging on my own to find out what other
Yes.
foods carry estrogen, and maybe something that you should stay away from. So, Lauryn, once again, thank you so much for joining me here on Period Sis, and good luck with everything with Endo Black as
Thank you
well.
so much. I appreciate it.